Welcome back. In this video, I am going to make a speaker in a very unusual way using this kit from Rockler, where you can make a Bluetooth speaker pretty much out of anything. You could assemble a box like you see on the cover of the packaging, but I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I had the idea of making out of natural piece of wood, such as a log. So I go out to my firewood log, and this is true. I found this log sitting there a minute before I turned the camera on. So I was like, oh, that's a good log. Let me go get my camera. And it was pouring rain out for a few days up here. So this log, I was intentionally planning on using just the round part. But after I let it dry in front of the fire, I took it over to the bandsaw and I started thinking about it. And I like the bell end or the root ball there. And I decided, let me see if I can make something creative with this root end. And there you see me using the arm from my rocking chair, or a scrap from it, to prop up. And I cut a big piece of this root ball off here on the bandsaw. And I'm just looking to see how big and unusual this thing would be. This is a piece of maple. This is obviously a small maple tree that died somewhere in the area. It ended up in my wood pile. And trying to brainstorm up a little concept here, I figured if we're going to figure out how to drill holes in this, there should be a spot for the phone itself. This is a very artistic approach, by the way. This is letting the wood decide the design as opposed to going into it with a very specific design, just trying to naturally figure out how and what I want to do with this. And so it occurred to me to machine a slot for a phone. And in this case, I get to use my table saw jig from Rockler to put a slot for the telephone. And now if you notice, I'm making a cut, just checking my height, that's right. It cuts through all those pieces of wood I just epoxied on. And I move it over a blade's width. And then I move over the piece of wood glued to the log. And I move it over a blade's width. And then I pass it through until I have the dado that I want in the top of the log. And I checked, I have enough space for the dado for a telephone and the hole itself for the speaker that's going to be protruding from the top. I'm not going to lie, this is a little bit strange of an approach. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going to go. My original drawing that I sent over was a piece of that log, and by the end of the video you'll see that piece of scrap sitting on the table, and I could still make a second speaker kit out of that. But I just thought it would be interesting to have this log with its root on the end of it. Now you see how I used epoxy temporarily, and I wanted to use epoxy, not hot glue, because I was using the table saw and I just wanted to make sure things were going to be sturdy and strong. And there you see the phone sitting in the cradle. My cat wants to say hi. This is my 32-inch Double D Oliver disc sander. It's a Pattern Maker's disc sander, so you can have that downstroke on two different sides of the disc. Now, looking at the root ball, I thought it would be interesting to make it seem as though it kind of came out of a swamp. So I'm going to put the speaker there in the bottom, but I'm going to dimple it in and then make it look like a natural progression. And you can see some really beautiful spalting in there, and then also obviously all those ant holes, insect holes that are in the bottom of that. And the wood is still quite wet. So I'm blending in that sculpting so it seems like it was a natural root progression there at the bottom. And I'm leaving space underneath to be able to put a speaker facing down and one facing up. And I'm sanding away all the gray weathering. And you could see some really nice spalting starting to show. The wood is still kind of damp. It's been thoroughly soaked. Just more sanding, trying to find that natural wood tone below the surface. You can see the spalting now is coming to the surface. It's actually starting to look quite beautiful. As I said, this was a daring project because it doesn't seem like I do much, but in all actuality, I do a lot. I was able to get a nearly 10-minute video out of this. And what I'm doing now is I'm filling up the voids from the ant holes in the bottom of this with epoxy. And I do that primarily because I'm going to drill a hole in there and make a pocket for the speaker. I don't want it to crumble. And I don't know what's going on in there, but it's pretty deep and pretty networky in there. So I fill it up with the epoxy. I let the epoxy cure, and then I start working on the other side. Now this requires a 2 3/4 inch hole, which I did not have a drill bit big enough. So I figured if I just stayed on the line, I'd get a pretty good hole. And then by staying also on the line, the speaker itself has a bezel, which will cover up any inconsistencies that might show by the handmade cut. And so I'm going down a little bit at a time. I'm going down about a 1/2 inch at a time, and I go pretty deep. And I get past all the necessary clearance I need for the speaker itself. And so I just drill a hole with this big bit. That's a big Forstner bit. I think that's a 2-inch Forstner bit. Now I'm just going down slowly, and I'm just making sure I have clearance. And I got the clearance I need. And you can see there the speaker fits in there nice. And then I got to pry it open with my razor blade. And the bottom's done. The epoxy's done on the bottom. And so I start drilling into that. And you can see all the epoxy that's coming out in that. That would have been a crumbly mess if I had not done that. You can see I'm pushing on the floor, holding it with the sides of my feet to keep it from spinning. And just drilling up and down from both sides. And then one side was perfectly healthy wood, the other side was rotted. So this is the side that was the healthy wood. It was having a hard time cutting. So I drilled that just to alleviate some of the material. At this point, I got pretty good clearance. I don't necessarily need to have a big hole. But by removing some of that material, then going back in with the Forstner bit, I'm able to get some of that material out a little bit quicker. And then coming in from the other side, I was able to connect the holes deep inside. And now, again, I need that 2 3/4 inch hole for the speaker on the bottom. And so in this case, because I can't get the router in there, I drilled the deep hole with the Forstner bit, and then I drew a line with a little template, and I just stayed right on my template with my die grinder, the carbide bit in there, and then I got some nice snug fitting there. So there we go. And now we need to put the module, the control module, and I'm going to put it in what I'm deeming the back of this, although it is a natural piece. What is the front? What is the back? What is the top? What is the bottom? That is the question for the gods. And now I'm flattening that out a little bit. It was fairly flat, but I'm flattening it out even more so that the bezel will sit flat against the wood itself. And you can't really tell from the image here, but the bezel does kiss the log around the entire circumference of the hole. And I just used some general finishes, just some satin finish. I personally like a satin finish. And what I don't show is I painted it, let it dry overnight, give it a light sanding, and then painted it again and let it dry again. So I gave it 2 coats. That first coat always raises the grain. You hit it with a little bit of a light sandpaper, maybe a 320 or a 400 or a 600, and then you give another coat. Now here we are done, and the quick installation, super quick installation. What's nice about installing this is if you decide that this log is no longer in fashion, like say for instance a river table might go out of fashion one day, you pull the speaker kit out fairly simply and put it into a cinder block or a brick or some other unusual object that you could turn into a speaker. And so here we go. It's just a quick connect, color coding, red, white, and blue. Make sure you connect the right colors to the right plugs, and you're good to go. Charge it up. The battery is on the back of one of the speakers itself, so it's all encompassed in there. And this is the charging cord that comes with it. Plug it in, let it charge for about 20 minutes, maybe even less. You can use it almost right away. And then when you turn it on, it turns into what you might call discoverable, and you find it on your phone. And then you play some copyright-free YouTube music off the YouTube studio, and you're good to go. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you find some interesting takeaway in this video, and that anything around you can become a lamp, a clock, or now a speaker. Thank you, Rockler, and thank you for watching.